Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming in and joining us in our New York, Susquehanna, and Western Bicycle and Pedestrian Path Final Path Design Virtual Public Meeting. Wish we were face-to-face tonight, but we are making do the best that we can. We really do appreciate your continued support and interest. I'm Mike Danamiller. I'm a principal engineer over at NV5. Used to be called RBA when this project started. And let me just let everyone know, this is being recorded for those who have to miss this evening, or if you want to check back. It'll be posted on the Morris County website, and we'll go over details about all of that in a minute, but we're really going to start off with a few words from our county freeholder from Passaic County, from Morris County, Catherine DiFilippo, and then in a moment, we'll hear from Passaic County from Mike Lysicatos. Catherine, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mike, and good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Morris County Freeholder Board, it's a pleasure to be here tonight to present the final design of this truly great project. The NYS&W Bike and Pedestrian Path will be the first trail of this kind in the region of Northeast Morris County, and it's approximately 5 miles long. It originated from a scoping study funded by the NJTPA, which found that this was feasible and led to a design grant to Morris County. It was then developed in coordination with the NJTPA, NJDOT, New Jersey Transit, and the NYS&W Railroad and the Norfolk Southern Railroad. All of this also required cooperation between various departments within Morris and Passaic counties, as well as Wayne and Pequannock Townships, several local organizations, and many private residents. The path will allow us to access recreation and historical facilities, such as the aquatic and Pequannock Valley Park, the historic Pompton Station, and the bridge over the Pompton River, to just name a few. In addition, Passaic County's Morris Canal Greenway Path will connect to the NYS&W path at Ryerson Road, which will allow the Greenway path to cross the Norfolk Southern tracks near Mountain View. This connection will complement and vastly expand walking and biking possibilities in the region in a park setting. And another positive, the path will be an economic generator that will link walkers and cyclists to local businesses in the area. It'll be very similar to the Park Commission's popular traction line that runs from Morristown to Madison, adjacent to New Jersey Transit's Morristown line. We're very excited about the recreational possibilities of this new path, and we look forward to being here in 2023 for its grand opening. With that, I say thank you and have a nice evening.
Excellent. Thank you, Catherine. I appreciate those words. Now let me introduce Mike Lysicatos, Director of Passaic County's Department of Planning and Economic Development.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Okay, great. First of all, I just want to thank everyone for attending tonight and welcome everyone on behalf of the Passaic County Board of Chosen Freeholders. They asked me to attend tonight's meeting as our department's very involved with most transportation projects in the county. And the freeholders have been very supportive of this project and adds a significant piece to our regional mobility puzzle. The staff has worked with their counterparts in Morris County on various technical aspects of the project in Passaic County, with an emphasis on how this is going to link up with the county's efforts on the Morris Canal Greenway specifically. So the NYS&W path will allow for more than 2 miles of the Morris Canal Greenway to the north and to the south of their project to connect. And it's really going to shape the recreational open space opportunities in both Morris and Passaic County. And the phase that this is going to connect to is currently under design. The Morris Canal is under design with Passaic County right now, and existing phases are coming online both in Woodland Park and Little Falls, and our Browtown Road and our Pompton, the Pequannock River crossing. So by the time, you know, our project moves along, connects with this project, you're going to have many, many more miles to bike and hike through Morris and Passaic counties. And it's these cooperative efforts that have really set the foundation for future funding and implementation and bring more resources to the residents of all of northern New Jersey.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that, and we certainly appreciate that kind of support. So I'm Mike Dannemiller. I'm principal engineer over at NV5, and I'm really just emceeing. Lay go over a few logistics, and I'll do a bit of an overview. And Chris Fitz, Morris County engineer, is really going to do the lion's share of the technical portion of the presentation. Logistics. First, everybody's on mute except for the couple of us who are speaking. We're taking questions the whole time. Any questions that you have, please use the chat feature at the bottom of the screen and type them in. We've got a crew of people taking a look at those along the way, and we will be answering them at the end of this presentation, and we have plenty of time for going through questions. Okay, that covers our agenda, and Chris, I'm going to jump into it. So
Okay.
first, where are we on the planet? We're in the northern portion of New Jersey, along Passaic and Morris counties in the municipalities of Pequannock over here and Wayne Township. As the freeholder said, this is about a 5-mile long corridor, and it really will tie in the highlands of Passaic County down to the NJ Transit facilities at Mountain View. This all started with funding, federal funding, through the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program administered by NJTPA, the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority. Pequannock and Wayne have been working with the two counties throughout this whole process. In 2010, Morris County led the negotiation with the railroad, the property owner, the New York, Susquehanna, and Western Railroad, who used to operate a train along the tracks. And the railroad agreed to sell the property. And that covers a majority of the alignment of this 5-mile long trail. The southern terminus, and this is one of the exceptions to that property, it's right by the Mountain View train station. Mountain View train station's right here. Route 23 runs north-south. There's a restaurant called Mother's right over here. The trail will have a trailhead right at this location, right by the Stall Plaza shopping center, where there's a Dollar Tree and a bunch of shops. And from there, it will run on Wayne property, adjacent to Norfolk Southern tracks. The northern project limit is at the north side of Pequannock Township, up by River Drive, just north of the Pompton Queen, or the jug handle, where the Newark Pompton Turnpike has a jug handle with Route 23. With that, I'm going to hand it off to Chris Fitz to go over some of the technical items of the path.
Okay, thanks, Mike. This slide actually shows the general cross-section of the new path. As you can see, we have just a bicyclist and a pedestrian on the path, shown on the path. It will be 10 feet wide. It will have some stone shoulders on each side of it. And we will only be clearing approximately 20 feet of the right-of-way. In most places, the right-of-way is over 100 feet wide, the original railroad right-of-way. So we are going to clear that of trees, the 20 feet needed for the path of trees and other growth. In addition, we're going to be cleaning up any other debris and trash from the overall right-of-way. So outside of that trail area, if there's any trash or railroad ties or anything, we're going to remove that. The existing railroad ties, remaining railroad rail, and other track material will be removed and recycled appropriately. Existing trees and growth beyond the trail, so beyond that 20 feet swath, will remain. You can go to the next slide now, Mike. Here's a more detailed cross-section in Wayne, near the southern end of the project. In this location, we're actually not on the original railroad right-of-way. We had to locate the trail adjacent to the railroad. It's still in use near the south end. And then also behind Stall Plaza, there's an area that we will be constructing the trail outside of any existing railroad right-of-way. So as I said, this is a typical section, cross-section in that area. Again, the trail will be 10 feet wide, made with porous pavement, and will have 2-foot gravel shoulders. Beyond that, the area will be graded where necessary and grass will be planted. The trail is being constructed overall to allow access for emergency and maintenance vehicles. This access will be restricted with bollards and other devices at each of the roadway crossings. And the reason for that is if there's any type of emergency that occurs along the trail, an ambulance or a police vehicle would be able to get to that person and provide them the help. And then also with maintenance, Morris County Parks obviously will have to maintain this, and obviously they use pickup trucks and other equipment to do that. So that's why it's going to be 10 feet wide. Next slide, Mike. Many of you are familiar with this view of the existing railroad and the right-of-way. In this photo, you can see the tracks in about the center of the image. To the right is the North Jersey District water supply water pipeline. And that's one of the venting and valve structures that is along that trail or along that right-of-way. And on the left side, you can see the utility poles that exist. So this is a typical view. The rails are just a little bit less than 5 foot apart. So if you can envision, the trail will be about double that width, 10 feet wide. And that width allows ample space for bicyclists and pedestrians to pass one another. Next slide, Mike. So there is one active railroad crossing on this project. It's kind of an oddity, but near the southern end in Wayne Township, just north of Stall Plaza, there's a portion of the railroad that's still used only for freight traffic, not for passenger traffic. The use is intermittent. There's probably 1 or 2 trains a week on this, and it's only a few boxcars long. So the movement is slow, and we still need to provide an actual railroad crossing at this location. So we did work with the New Jersey Department of Transportation and Norfolk Southern, the owner of the rail line, and came up with this design for the crossing. This has been approved by both Norfolk Southern and the New Jersey Department of Transportation for the trail crossing. One thing that's occurred since then is Norfolk Southern no longer operates the rail line. They leased it out to a different firm. And that firm, fortunately, also works with Morris County on some other county-owned lines. So we have a very good working relationship with them. And they do understand that this will be a pedestrian crossing and that they have to take care in order to cross. So the elevated path. As I said, a portion of the path cannot be located on the existing railroad, as in the last slide. A portion of the railroad is still in use. So we have to build the trail adjacent, just to the east of the railroad right-of-way. And in that area, the property is somewhat encumbered by environmental and wetlands floodplain issues. We did work with Wayne Township. They own the property, and they granted an easement to Morris County to construct a raised path, a walkway across that portion. So you can see in this view, it will be a concrete path. It'll be 10 feet wide between the railings. So again, we're maintaining that overall width of 10 feet. And then the path was constructed, it'll have 48-inch tall railings on each side to prevent anybody from falling off that portion. And there'll be rungs on that railing in order to prevent anybody from sticking their head through it, for lack of a better term. So it will be safe. And this trail, or this elevated path, starts about 1,000 feet south of Ryerson Road. It continues down adjacent to the existing railroad right-of-way to Meadow Road, and then it crosses Meadow Road at grade. And then there's another bridge that'll be south of Meadow Road, and that's actually the next slide, if you could go to that, Mike. one too far. All right, that's what I alluded to, is the Pequannock Brook crossing. As you can see, Meadow Road is just to the right side of the blown up view. The orange is the actual trail, and the Pequannock Brook is the blue shown on that screen in the upper left side. As I said, Meadow Road, there'll be a grade crossing or a roadway crossing as a typical crosswalk across that roadway. And then the elevated trail will start again to go across this 34-foot long bridge over the Pequannock Brook. And as I said, we're trying to, the trail is lifted through this area on this raised walkway to allow any flood waters or to pass underneath the structure, and also to limit our impacts to the environment. Next slide, please, Mike. The Pompton River Railroad Bridge. This is one of the most beautiful focal points of this trail. And as such, we're trying to really add some amenities to it to make it look much better and allow trail users to really enjoy this portion of the trail. The trail, at this point, the existing structure is the largest bridge on the project. It was originally constructed in 1915. It connects Pequannock Township in Morris County to Wayne Township in Passaic County. The overall length of the bridge is 280 feet. And the existing bridge, as can be seen in the photo, has suffered from lack of maintenance for the last 40 years. The beams are quite rusted. They were last painted with lead paint, although there's not much left of it. And then the concrete you can see in this image is spalling in several areas on the bridge piers and on the bridge abutments. Next page, Mike. So we are going to actually repair the bridge, and that includes removal of all remaining lead paint. The actual bridge will be encapsulated to capture any of the lead paint that's removed from the bridge, and then it'll be repainted. There's some damaged steel beams from a train accident that occurred on the bridge over 40 or 50 years ago, and those steel beams have to be also repaired. And then we'll also perform concrete repairs on the bridge piers and the bridge abutments. Due to the depth of the bridge girders on either side of the structure, it would limit the view shed from the bridge itself if we kept the trail at the same height as the railroad is now. So our intent is actually to elevate the trail across the bridge so that pedestrians would be able to have a view over the top of those existing steel beams, steel girders. So we feel that that would be a great value for people to be able to see north and south of the bridge structure up and down the river, because it is quite beautiful in that area. If you can go to the next slide, please, Mike. And this is a rendering of the actual completed bridge. The rendering provides a view of the trail approaching the rehabilitated bridge. I believe this view is actually from the south, from Hall Road. And we will continue that paved path across this bridge. So it'll be a concrete structure across the bridge itself, or a concrete surface. And it'll maintain that 10-foot width. There will be handrails because the girders are actually a little bit wider than the trail will end up being. So there will be handrails on either side of the bridge. And then in this view, the existing bridge girders are highlighted in red just to be able to better see it. But as many bridge structures from the turn of the century, they were painted black. And that's what we intend to do with this bridge. It'll be repainted back into that historic color. It's quite easy to maintain too, so that's why it would be returned to that. So now I'll ask Mike to go over the additional details of the trail.
Excellent. Thanks, Chris. And yeah, this is some of my favorite parts about this trail are the great connections that it's really going to provide. That's everything from the commercial areas, such as the shops that are along by Ryerson Ave, North Pompton Turnpike in Pequannock, and along Jackson Ave and North Pompton Turnpike. That'll be a quick connection by the historic train station, and the parks. And this trail, this path is going to connect parks throughout. Washington PV Park, Pequannock Town Hall, Aquatic Park, which right now really isn't well connected to the town. Many lifelong residents in Pequannock don't even know where that is, and there'll finally be a really good connection, pardon me, to those parks. People have asked about parking. This trail will also connect to great existing municipal facilities where people can drive, park, and go for a walk, go for a ride, walk their dog. There is really good existing parking at PV Park, at Washington Park, at Pequannock Town Hall. Some of the benefits of building trails like this in general. First off, this is going to provide great connectivity to the Mountain View train station. It will be an alternative to hopping in your car and driving to Lincoln Park or to Willowbrook Mall to use transit facilities. You'll be able to go under your own power, walking or biking, and quite frankly, you also don't have to pay to park your bike. Off-road exercise opportunities. Other parts of the state, other parts of the counties have trail facilities, but none similar in this area. And there will be a 5-mile long off-road facility that will really provide good options for walking and biking. And it'll be in a lot better shape than what's out there today. The historic Pompton Plains train station. Many people are familiar with it, just off of Jackson Ave by the Quick Check. That's what it looks like today. And what we're envisioning is, as Chris was describing, an asphalt paved path along the railroad tracks, predominantly right on top of where the tracks are now. Some of the features you see here, beyond just the path, seating, and the seating outside of the through travel way of the path. So if someone sitting on a bench isn't encumbered by people traveling along. Stub connections. This is very typical. There's you see a nice little connection here that goes towards where the Quick Check is. There's similar ones to PV Park, to Pequannock Town Hall, to Washington Park, to provide those local connections to existing facilities. And you can just see behind the rider bollards. And we'll have collapsible bollards so that it'll restrict motor vehicle traffic. But if an ambulance has got to get down, they can nudge the bollard over without problem and without damaging it. They can be put back up without hurting those. So it's a nice little design feature. Big question. People ask, okay, when's it going to happen? We just wrapped up the design. Construction is slated for next spring, and ribbon cutting within 2 years after that. We'll get to more detail on that in a minute. And that leads us to what we expect are some of the frequently asked questions. So let me just run through a couple of these, starting with, will the project be cutting down any trees? Well, yes. For the last 40 years, there has been significant plant growth along the unused rail line. So those plants will have to be removed. Will any private property be affected? Yes, there are some private property owners that'll be affected, and all of them have been included in the planning process, in this final design process, and are on board with moving the path forward. Who will maintain the trail? We've said this trail goes through 2 towns, 2 counties. Morris County Park Commission will maintain the entire path. How much will this project cost? As folks have probably seen in the newspapers recently, there's been some talk about that. The advertised $20 million price tag, know that that includes a whole lot of things. First off, it includes property acquisition. It includes environmental cleanup of this historic rail corridor. It includes construction of both the path itself and 3 major structures. That raised boardwalk type concrete structure that Chris detailed, that Pequannock Brook crossing, and the rehab of that almost 300-foot long Pompton River Bridge. And then, okay, well, who will be funding the construction of this path? We touched on this before. It's federal funding. What's planned to be used is Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, federal funds, and that's what we planned for initial questions. Now, let me just cover another logistic. Conversation that we'll have tonight, putting in your comments, and we're seeing a whole lot come in the chat. That's conversation. If you want a formal response from Morris County, they need your questions in writing. So you can email them, you can fax them, you can write them a letter, and that window is for the next 30 days. And that's good. That's open until August 28th. So if you want a formal response, please send, and it goes to Chris Fitz. Sorry, Chris, but he will be collecting all those questions and will be responding. If it's something you just want a quick response to, put it in the chat now, and we're going to try and get through all of those questions now. And I think that covers those logistics. Also, if you have questions that come up after this presentation's over and something strikes you, you can give the county a call. Here's the number listed on the screen. That's 973-285-6750. That also goes to Chris. And you can ask any questions there. And if it's something quick, they can give you a response that way. Now, we do have on board with us right now, we've got the engineers, landscape architects, our county staff, and we're going to go through questions. We received a couple just before this started, and so I'm going to start with those. First was a question about horses. Will horses be permitted on the path? And the quick answer is yes, horses will be directed to walk along the dirt section of the non-paved area next to the path. As Chris said, the path is about 10 feet wide. There's plenty of other space along there, but the horses will not be allowed on the paved part of the trail. Next question that we got in, I'm going to read this. There's just a little preamble. As an avid runner, I'm wondering if there is accommodation on the proposed asphalt non-cinder trail for runners that want to run on a soft surface. And Chris, I'm going to hand that to you. The question goes on, is it possible to create a single track that is completely cinder adjacent to the planned paved trail? Chris?
At this time, yep. At this time, there's not. We're looking specifically for the paved trail. There are additions that can be made later at a later date, but at this time, it's just going to be the paved surface.
Okay. The next question that came in is there a plan to provide parking for any portions of the rail walking path where people come from other locations to park and then walk on it? And Chris, if you want me to take that, I can.
You can take that, and then if there's anything I need to add, I'll do that.
Sure. We touched on this during the presentation. There are several existing parking locations along the trail. Washington Park, PV Park, Pequannock Town Hall are all basically adjacent to the path alignment, and there's ample parking at all those locations. So yes, public parking will certainly be available at several locations along the path. Okay, now I'm going to get to the questions posted this evening. And Chris, this is probably going to come back to you. First one listed here is, when is construction starting on the bike path?
We plan to start in the middle of 2021. And the reason for that is the funding for the project becomes live for construction at that time.
Okay. Next question that's posted here is it possible to have a cinder surface similar to the Columbia Trail through the Ken Lockwood Gorge or the Pine Creek Gorge in Pennsylvania? I think it would be easier to maintain.
Actually, that one, I would say that it's actually a little bit more difficult to maintain because there has to be constant work to make sure there's no potholes or areas that accumulate water. With the paved path, it'll be crowned so that water does not stay on the roadway or on the roadway, on the pathway itself. So we do not plan to use a cinder surface. It would be a paved surface.
Okay. Next question that we see posted. I'm just going to read it verbatim. I need the reassurance that the topography or the site will not change. Any bringing down the level of the original tracks will cause flooding in the areas that have been okay. Pompton Plains section. Trains were built at those levels to avoid flooding. Thanks.
We actually have discussed this with the township engineer in Pompton Plains, Pequannock. What we plan to do is simply remove the rail and grade out the area below that. So there should be no change to the elevation, the final elevation of the trail from what had been there with the railroad. So again, we'll remove the rail, we're going to remove ties, grade it, and then build the trail up on top of that.
Okay. The next question posted is a variation on a theme here, but will the path, in addition to the paved surface width, have enough room for an unpaved packed dirt, small gravel trail on the side, preferred by runners for lower joint impact?
No, there won't be any specific area for the that's unpaved packed next to the trail.
Okay. Next question. Please elaborate on the permeability of the surface being used to pave the trail surface.
I'm going to ask, I think Andrew might be able to answer that. Andy?
Yeah, I don't have the exact permeability numbers offhand, but if they wanted to submit that as a formal question, we could provide additional response and technical information on that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So for a formal response, that'd be more detailed. Please do take the moment to put that into an email or whatever is most convenient for you to get over to Chris. Okay. Next question posted. Intermodal question for commuters. How will bikers, pedestrians access Route 23 Transit Center, which has far more buses for 7-day service from the Mountain View terminus?
As far as the Orange County project, we're stopping at Mountain View. I'm not sure what connection exists below there to access the other bus depot or transit center. That could be something that we discuss with Passaic County. And again, if that's submitted as a formal question, we could get back to that person with a good answer.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Next question. Rail banking. 50 to 75 years in the future, if needed, will this right-of-way be able to revert to transit or transit plus path use?
There's nothing in our project that would prevent that from happening. Again, 50 or 75 years down the road, it could very well happen. And at that time, I don't know if it would convert just to railroad or if it would be railroad and trail use. That would be well down the road.
Okay. Next question. River access. Will there be kayak canoe access to the Pompton River, both at the northern terminus near River Drive and at the southern Pompton River crossing?
I don't know exactly the area of the parks there, Mike, so I'm not sure if they permit kayak and canoe access now at the Pompton River in the park at the northern terminus. Near the bridge itself, there's the railroad right away, but beyond that, it's still private property. So I don't believe any access would be permitted there at this specific time.
Yeah, I believe, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I believe Pequannock Township has been acquiring some property off of River Drive along the water, but there's great connectivity to Aquatic Park. Aquatic Park has excellent river access, and this will provide access to that. So through Aquatic Park, there'll definitely be good river access, certainly at the northern end of the project. Okay, next question. What is the design lifetime or planned lifetime of the bridges and structures which will be built or repaired?
That would be 50 to 75 years.
Okay. Next question. Pompton Lakes Park access. Near the northern terminus, the alignment is right next to the Pompton River and across from the Laurie Track Pompton Lakes Parks. Will there be provision for a pedestrian bike bridge across the river?
My staff actually at Morris County has had discussions with Pompton Lakes about that access. It's not specifically part of this project, but I believe Pompton Lakes is looking at that some type of access there, obviously a bridge across the river. There's environmental constraints that would have to be addressed, specifically with any kind of bridge across the river in that area. But I believe Pompton Lakes is looking at that.
Okay, next question. Non-road access. Will there be stub connections for pedestrians, bike access to non-street crossings from Evans Place, from the fields behind Town Hall, Church Lane, Marvin Road, alongside PV Park, connections to Greenwood Ave, Lyman Park, Cherry Street Park, and by Greenwood Corners Park, Riverside Drive, by the bridge, and Margaret Street?
I don't know those areas specifically, so we would have to work with the municipality in order to make connections. And that could be something that occurs in the future, especially if there's private property to cross. Pequannock would have to obtain easements or rights of way across those properties in order to connect to the trail. But there's nothing that would prevent that from happening.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, next question. Will trash and litter be picked up? People have a habit of littering along the tracks today.
That will be addressed. Obviously, with the railroad right of way the way it is today, it's easier for people to litter and leave trash along the railroad. With this access, with parks having maintenance on it, any trash or litter will be picked up.
Okay, next question. Will a portion of the existing ties, rails, be preserved for historic purposes?
I believe Pequannock did ask that some rails be placed near the existing train station. We will work with them on that. Obviously, it can't be placed on the trail, and then the water line is there also. So we can work with providing them some of those materials. But I would say the existing railroad ties are not salvageable. It would have to be new ties, but rail will be scrapped on that's still in place. So if there's a couple of lengths of rail that we can provide to the township, we would do so.
This next question clarifies a little bit of what we were saying a moment ago. It reads, Pequannock Township has been developing the Pompton River Walk. That trail will add another loop for this trail. There is a key public access connection needed immediately north of the Pompton River to enable a connection to Riverside Drive. Has there been any progress on securing access from the private property owner at that location?
Not as specifically as part of this project. I would have to check offline to see if anyone else, either Parks or another group, is working to obtain that.
Okay, next question. Why isn't Passaic County partially responsible for upkeep as well?
This is actually a Morris County project, and Morris County purchased the property and easements in Passaic County. So as such, Morris County has to maintain it as any property owner would in the county.
Okay, next question. What type of environmental contamination was identified?
The contamination that exists is actually items that were dumped after the rail use. So it's mainly garbage that's been dumped along the railroad that has to be cleaned up. The other item, obviously, is the railroad ties that are left from the railroad use. The ties contain creosote, and that material is considered hazardous and has to be removed and recycled. Once that's done, one of the other reasons for the paved surface and stone beyond that is it actually works as a cap for whatever may be left, whatever creosote or anything else that may be left underneath where the railroad had been. So that contamination has all been identified and will be removed as part of this project.
Great, okay. Next question. Will trash bins be placed along the trail? If so, who will ensure they are emptied?
Is Denise able to speak? She might be able
Yes.
to talk
Yes.
on that one.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, can you introduce yourself, Denise?
Good evening. My name is Denise Chaplick. I'm with the Morris County Park Commission. I'm the Director of Planning and Development. This park, this linear park, is expected to function as all of our other parks, where the policy is a pack in and pack out. So the expectation is that users will carry out the trash that they bring in. Garbage cans are not a typical feature within our parks. So that's the expectation for this trail as well.
Great, thank you. Next question. Thank you for taking time to go over this. Who will take care of the garbage? I believe we've just covered that. I'm going to jump to the next question from a local engineer who grew up in the area. Have you modeled extreme water height events on the water crossings, Pompton and Pequannock, the Pompton River crossing and the Pequannock Brook?
Andy, is that something you can answer?
Yeah, we've modeled it, and that's one of the reasons that we are using the concrete raised trail through that low area. But yeah, we know the area floods, and we know the elevations of the floodwater, so it has been modeled.
Okay, the next question. Our property is fully visible from the tracks due to a farm easement between us and the tracks. Will you provide some shrubs for privacy? We feel like a lot of people will be able to see us swim in our pool, etc.
This project does not envision placing any type of screening or shrubbery adjacent to the right-of-way. If there's an issue, obviously, with visibility into the property, we would suggest that the property owner either install a fence on their own property or install shrubs or other vegetation that would screen their property from the railroad right-of-way.
Okay, the next question reads, what trailside amenities are planned for the trails?
Hi, this is Denise again. There are several basic amenities, benches, kiosks. I believe that's pretty much the extent, and those will occur at strategic locations, mainly at the intersection crossings. There'll be benches and directories or kiosks with relevant information. But it's, pretty basic. There's not a lot of, much more than those basics.
Okay. The next question reads, what will the signage look like? Will there be route signs from Jacksonville Road, for example? This project promises to allow bicycle connections to Boonton and deeper into Morris County.
Denise again. Right now, there is not wayfinding sign, so to speak, on the trail itself. I would expect that would evolve over time after the fact, and with more collaboration with the local communities as to, what the directions that they would like to include. But with the project going in initially, there's not wayfinding sign incorporated.
Okay. Next question. Why not build a new bridge for the Pompton River Bridge, since it is such poor condition, rather than refurbish it?
I can answer that. This is Chris Bitts. It actually would be much more expensive to build an entirely new structure, and especially a 10-foot wide structure, almost 300 feet long. It's much cheaper to actually repair the existing bridge. In addition, if we were to build a new bridge, it may require removing the old bridge, so the expenses mount. So although the bridge is not in the best of condition, it's very viable for trail use. And that's the reason why we are going to remove the lead paint and remove the railroad ties that are on the structure, and then place the elevated walkway.
Okay. The next question. There's a future connection possible northward to the proposed Highlands Rail Trail from Wanaque north to Monksville Reservoir along the rest of the old New York and Greenwood Lake Railroad right-of-way. Are there provisions for extension of the NYS&W trail northward through Pompton Lakes?
The short answer is yes. The railroad is actually still in use north of the end of our trail, actually at Riverdale Road north to approximately Route 287. The railroad's still in use. There's several customers there. If for some reason that railroad disappears in the future, then obviously there'd be the ability to place some type of trail there. I should note also in Riverdale itself, while the railroad has the right-of-way south of Post Lane, north of Post Lane, they use the entirety of the right-of-way. They have a customer there that uses the entire right-of-way width, and that's a very active customer. So while there's no specific ability to build or extend the trail right now, at some point in the future that can be done.
Okay, Chris, the next question, I'm going to paraphrase it because a person shared some personal information at the beginning of it, but it's a property owner adjacent to the trail, business property. And though they didn't hear about the project earlier, they found out about it from the Facebook page, Township Facebook page. They're concerned about parking available for this particular area, and that's near off of Jackson Ave, Quick Check portion of Pompton Plains. They have had problems before in the past with people trespassing and illegally parking on property which is just for tenants and residents only. So the question is, will there be parking made by this area? There is an area behind the fire station that appears vacant and can be developed for parking, so people don't illegally park on their property. Those existing parking areas are not near their property. Please advise.
Okay, so we are working to create some parking across that driveway from the fire station. It's actually on the railroad right-of-way. That is not specifically part of this trail project. It'll be a little bit of a separate add-on to the project. So that should hopefully alleviate any issues with parking in that area. Obviously, we would also, if this property owner would like to email us directly, we can work with them in order to put better signage up that says, you know, for tenants only or something like that.
Great, okay. The next question's a larger scale. Is there going to be concurrent development of and connection to bicycle paths throughout Wayne and Pequannock?
We would have to talk to Passaic County, Wayne, and Pequannock. I'm not sure of what plans they have for any additional trails.
Okay. I'm sure this next person didn't admit to doing any trespassing, but let me just read this. As one of us who has used this path in Pompton Plains for 35 years, I am sad to see your plan to pave and not leave a soft surface where we currently have a right-of-way outside of the rails.
So understandably, people that live there, and I will admit I'm fairly local. I live in Riverdale, and I do walk along the railroad right of way today. We do plan to obviously construct this paved path. There are areas outside of that that are pretty trampled down and well worn by people that use that area now. We don't plan to make any changes to those areas or cut off access, but we would ask that anybody that uses the right of way stays to the trail, the paved trail.
Okay, Jim, excuse me. Bicycle specialist asks a question. What will be the motorized regulations for e-bikes and scooters and micromobility devices?
Denise, do you want to take that one?
Yes, that policy is currently under review. Right now, we're not restricting e-bikes, but there's no formal policy as to, if we distinguish between any classes of those bikes. But right now, they are not restricted.
Okay, the next question, and Jim, I'm going to rephrase this a little bit. Will the path be, and I'll say ADA, American Disability Act compliant?
Yes.
Okay, there's a solid answer.
That's one of the, I should add, that's one of the reasons for the paved surface too. It's to let all possible people use the trail. And obviously the crossings at the streets will also be ADA compliant. They have to have the detectable warning surface and appropriate signs and striping.
Excellent. Thank you for the elaboration there, Chris. Okay, next question.
You're welcome.
Will sections be opened as they are completed prior to completion of the full project?
I don't really have an answer for that yet. It really depends on how the construction occurs. If the contractor decides to do sections of the trail and fully complete them, or how they determine how they're going to do the work. So that would have to be answered at a later date.
Okay, we're going to circle back to something we've touched on. Will horse riders be expected to clean up their droppings, which they currently leave behind extensively?
Denise, do you want to answer that since it's carry in, carry out?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, you know, pack it in, pack it out. Courtesy of other users.
Yep.
Okay, and to elaborate there, the horses are not expected to be on the paved section of the path, of the
Correct.
right of way. Okay. Next question. Will there be motion sensors for cars to know whether there are bikes coming to major intersections?
I believe the law today is that the bikers need to yield when they come to a trail crossing of a roadway. And that would be our intent also, that they need to stop before they cross the street.
Sure. And at
Yeah,
North
if I
Ponton
could
Turnpike,
just-
was there something?
If I could just elaborate, there are 2 signalized intersections, and what I mean by signalized is that they're pedestrian activated signals, and those will occur at North Ponton and Jackson. The other, I'll call lower level crossings, are stop controlled, and it's intended that the trail user is stopping. And those, all of those signs and warnings and will be placed along the trail to give you advance notice of when that's happening.
Excellent, thanks. Okay, the next question. Will the trail allow for 6 feet social distancing if it is still necessary?
Yes, the trail is 10 feet wide. That's more than enough space to have 6 foot of separation.
Okay, the next question. So, going through Ponton Plains, will you leave us our trail we have now and stay on the track?
In the Ponton Plains area, the new trail will be constructed approximately where the track was. As I had mentioned in one of the earlier slides, the rail is approximately 5 foot railhead to railhead. The trail would be 5 foot wider than that, so 10 foot overall. So, you know, if there's areas that are worn already where the water line is and it's a soiled trail there, we don't plan to do any work in those areas, but we do ask that everybody use the paved path rather than those old trails.
Excellent, thanks. Okay, next question. Will any type of lighting be installed where the trail travels underneath the Route 23 viaduct near the northern terminus?
No, there's no lighting accommodations on this project.
Okay, next question. What material is being used to pave the trail?
It's asphalt, but it's a porous asphalt, so it has a kind of an open grain to it, larger stone aggregate.
Okay, next question. Once the trail is up and running, is there a plan to provide funding for future maintenance?
If I can just speak to that, I know the Park Commission continues to be in discussions with the county about the long-term maintenance needs. And it would be my expectation that further conversations happen with the local communities as well to address, you know, the evolutional needs that come about. So, you know, I think that remains to be seen exactly how that unfolds.
Okay, this next question I believe we have answered, but I just touched this. Will sections of the path be available for use as construction is completed? Oh, sorry. Yes, we've covered that.
Yes.
Moving on. Are there any plans to add parking spaces in the grassy field adjacent to the Route 23 viaduct near or at Aquatic Park?
This has been brought up by Pequannock Township before. I believe they're looking at something to add parking in that area. It won't be part of the county's project, but it could be part of a municipal project to do that.
Okay, next question. How does the intersection pathway on Major Road Cross, North Pompton Turnpike, Jackson Road, pedestrians have right of way?
As I mentioned before, there are pedestrian activated signals. It's the expectation that the pedestrian would push a button to activate the signal and wait for cars to stop and then proceed to cross. There are also high visibility crosswalks at those locations to reinforce the location and acknowledge to the drivers to anticipate pedestrians in that location. I think I answered the question.
Okay, great. Then move on to the next one. Of the about 5 miles, how much is in Morris County and how much is in Passaic County?
I believe it's approximately 3 miles in Morris and 2 miles in Passaic.
Yeah, I would agree. It's like 2/3 in Morris, 1/3 in Passaic.
Okay, we have another question about garbage. One gentleman said the Morris County Parks would be responsible for garbage cleanup, but then Morris County Parks said pack in, pack out. Which is it?
Yes, let me clarify. Chris noted that if there is trash on the ground, our maintenance crews will pick it up. But it's not common practice for us to locate trash bins for disposal and cleanup. So I think that clarifies between that conflict.
Okay. I think our engineer was curious about the water modeling. This question reads, what did the water model say? How often will the trail be underwater?
I would
hard
say
to put an exact number on, Mike. We can certainly, if they want to provide that question in writing, we can provide additional information. I don't know how often you could say, but it was designed for a certain year storm.
Okay, the next question. Will PV Park be directly accessed without going on any roads, a stub to the bike racks? And Chris, if you'd like me to take that.
Yeah, why don't you take that one, because we don't know the
Sure.
specific access point there.
Absolutely. That was from day one. That was one of the major connections that was planned for. There's a stub connection that goes to the edge of the right-of-way limit of the rail line that heads right for where the bike racks are, close to in front of the gatehouse of PV Park. Once it hits Pequannock Township property, it'll be up to the township to finish a connection. But yes, there'll be a stub connection going directly to PV Park. And that would be right by where the bike racks are located. Okay, the next question. Is dog walking permitted on the path?
Yes, dog walking is permitted so long as they are on a leash and owners pick up after their pets.
Pack in, pack out. Okay, the next question. a lot of motorcycles ride on the side of the tracks back towards the river on the north end of the path. How will you prevent them from using the path?
I believe, Mike, you had mentioned it at one of the crossings and in the rendering. There'll be bollards and other items placed on the right-of-way at the road crossings to prevent any other type of motor vehicle use other than at the trail itself. So we're going to do our best to prevent any type of use like that.
Okay, next question. Will street crossings be equipped with sidewalks crossing the right-of-way?
This is Denise again. Yes, we did add sidewalks along or across the right-of-way to connect to existing sidewalks. And I think a good example is there were some missing gaps on North Pompton that we made some connections, as well as at Jackson. So we'll be filling in the gaps, so to speak, at those intersections.
Okay, next question. Will fencing be installed along either side of the right-of-way?
There is some minor areas of fencing that will be installed due to elevation changes around drainage structures and things along the railroad right-of-way, along the path. But we don't plan to place fence along every foot of the path adjacent to it.
Okay, it looks like we've covered the questions that have been posted to date. If anyone is looking for more detail, I'll reiterate, and let me just jump back here. If you want specifics, if you want definitely want a written response, anytime between now and up to August 28th, you can email, you can fax, you can write a letter. If you just want to ask a quick question, the phone number to call is 973-285-6750. And all of that goes to Chris Vitz, who we've been hearing a lot from this evening. No, excuse me, I'm not going to circle back around yet. Another question just got posted.
Yeah, there's a couple of them that I saw too, Mike. One that I believe you missed was where would access and parking from Wayne be?
Oh.
And I that would be a good one to answer. That was up at 7:39. That was asked. I can answer that. The terminus of the trail will be underneath or near where Route 23 crosses over Route 202 in Mountain View. There'll be some minor area there for parking, but then also the train station itself, I believe, will be available for parking.
Great, thank you. Sorry I missed that one. We did just see another come in. I'll read that one. Will there be retaining walls along the areas that are elevated in Pompton Plains?
There aren't any areas in Pompton Plains, to my knowledge, that are elevated. In Pompton Plains, we really are sticking to where the tracks exist or had been. So there should be no need for retaining walls any place in Pompton Plains.
Okay, and I'll just add a point of clarification there. There's a little bit of grade change right where the tracks go underneath through Route 23.
Okay.
But we're planning on staying exactly as Chris just clarified, at the elevation where the tracks are. No retaining walls needed.
If I could just add, there was a small retaining wall at the base of the bridge crossing the Passaic, just to return back to grade. But it's nothing substantial.
Mike, there was one question came from freeholder DiFilippo too. She had asked early on, Will there be mile markers along the trail to identify where you are if you need to call 911? So Denise, I'm not sure if that's part of the plan or not.
Yes, there is. There are mile markers. I believe we posted them at every quarter-mile distance so that you could locate yourself if needed and just get a general sense of how far you're traveling.
Excellent. A couple questions just came in. Will the trail be extended in the future?
At this time, we don't have any plans, Morris County itself. But if Pequannock or Riverdale or Wayne or Passaic County would like to add to the trail, we definitely, I believe, Denise, I don't want to talk for you, but we would accept any kind of connections that would be available to make it better.
Right, I think the biggest one that the gentleman from Passaic County mentioned is the connection they're making with the Morris Canal. That is going to make a huge addition and extend the range for everyone. So that's the most immediate connection to happen, but yeah.
Okay. Next question that I see. When does this project go out for bid, and where can you see the bid opening?
This will go out to bid in 2021. We don't have a specific bid date yet. The bid opening will occur at the Morris County Administration Building in Morristown. What I'd suggest is if this person could email us directly, we could make sure that once this is advertised, they could get notification of it, and we could send that out to them so they would know when the opening is.
I'm sure we could keep the municipalities up to date as well as to the timing of releasing things.
Correct.
Okay, there's another question here. Bear with me, this is a long question. Is the permeable pavement a NJDEP, Department of Environmental Protection, requirement? What is the expected useful life before it must be replaced? The permeable pavement at nearby Hirschfield Park in Pompton Lakes has deteriorated and is dangerous. Is the permeable pavement NJDEP requirement? What is the expected useful life before it must be replaced? Oh, sorry, I guess there was a copy paste issue there.
Andy, was that a DEP requirement? I don't remember if it was. I thought it was, but
yeah, it is a DEP requirement to meet the stormwater requirements. So that's the reason for, since we were going to have a paved path, that was really a requirement from DEP to use the permeable pavement.
Sure. And then as far as lifespan, if the cross section that we had shown, we're putting a substantial amount of stone underneath the actual asphalt, so that will give the asphalt a longer lifetime. So I anticipate 20 years out of the asphalt, and that's what I would hope for. The traffic volumes, there's not going to be very heavy traffic on it, just pedestrians and bicyclists. So it should last quite a long time.
Okay, great. I think we've caught up to the questions that have been asked to date. We still have about 65 people signed on. I'm not sure if anyone came in late, but I'm going to reiterate any detailed questions that you really want a written response to. Please either email, fax, or write a letter to Chris Vitz. Chris, I don't think I had read for the record. The email is cvitz@co.morris.nj.us. The fax number, I don't think I'd read that out loud, is 973-539-3141. Or if you just want a phone call, if you just want to ask a question, that phone number for telephone is 973-285-6750. And the question period extends through August 28th. And Chris, with that, what I think we can do, in case anyone signed in late, is we can run through the show from the beginning. And just for anyone who might have missed the first part, still be on the lookout for any questions that continue to come in. But from the top, welcome. Sorry if you caught that on the fly, but my name is Mike Dannemiller. I'm a principal engineer at NV5. Used to be called the RBA Group when this project started. This is the virtual public meeting for the New York, Susquehanna, and Western bicycle and pedestrian path, final path design. Chris Vitz, Morris County engineer, and I are going over a brief overview about the project. And we started with a welcome from Morris County freeholder, Catherine DiFilippo, and Passaic County Director of Department of Planning and Economic Development, Mike Lysicatos. Myself, there's Mike Dannemiller, and Chris Vitz are going through things, and just overall location of the project, northern New Jersey, Passaic County and Morris County. This project goes from Pequannock Township, you see in yellow on the left, about 3 miles in Pequannock Township and about 2 miles in Wayne Township of Passaic County. And really it connects the Highlands area of Passaic County down towards the Mountain View Station in Passaic County. This project started quite a while ago with federal funds, Surface Transportation Block Grant funding through NJTPA, the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority. And both Pequannock and Wayne Townships have been working together with their county representatives and have collaborated to put together a path that ties together these two municipalities. Morris County has really led the project and led the negotiation with the major property owner, the New York, Susquehanna, and Western Railroad, and worked out that the railroad agreed to sell the property to Morris County. And that's property in both Morris County and Passaic County, covers a majority of the alignment of the project. This trail runs along the existing railroad tracks between River Drive up in the north end in Pequannock. I'll go over that in a moment, to Mountain View Station along Route 202, Mountain View Boulevard in Wayne. There are 10 road crossings, 11 road crossings in total, but Route 23 is grade separated, where the railroad goes underneath the roadway. At the southern limit, Mountain View Boulevard that you see across the middle of the screen, here's Mountain View train station. That's really the southern anchor at the southern end of this project. The exact connection will be the trailhead just down Mountain View Boulevard, and there's a signalized intersection at the north end of Sherman Street, right here in front of Stall Plaza. The north end of the project is at River Drive in Pequannock, just north of where the jug handle is for North Pompton Turnpike along Route 23. This is just north of Pompton Queen Diner. Chris, would you like to cover elements about the cross
Sure.
section?
Sure. This slide shows a typical cross section. This would be in the Pompton Plains area in Wayne Township also, where the trail actually is using the former rail bed and the former railroad right-of-way. The work would require us to remove about a 20-foot wide area of trees and vegetation, remove the existing track, what's left, remove any railroad ties. We'd remove any other trash and debris that's in the overall right-of-way at that time too. The railroad ties that would be removed would be recycled and recycled appropriately. And then existing tree growth beyond that 25-foot swath would remain. You can go to the next slide, Mike. Here's a more detailed section in the area of Wayne. We're outside of the railroad right-of-way. Again, you can see the trail is 10 foot wide, 2-foot shoulders. In some areas, it'll be raised above the existing soil, so you can see where we grade the slope out beyond that. Again, 10 foot wide, it's going to be graded. Trail is being constructed to allow access for emergency and maintenance vehicles. The access will be restricted with bollards and other devices at each of the roadway crossings. If you can go to the next slide, Mike. This is a view of the corridor that currently exists in Pompton Plains, Pequannock. You can see obviously the railroad is there in the foreground. To the right is the water line, North Jersey District Water Supply property, easement and water line. And then also on the left is the existing utility poles. So you can envision the trail, the railroad rails are approximately 5 feet apart. The trail would be 10 feet wide, so approximately double that width. And then it would be, obviously the rail would be removed. There are railroad ties under there, even though it doesn't look like there are. Those would be removed and disposed of properly. So with the 10-foot width, that'll allow enough room for bicyclists and pedestrians. It'll allow 6-foot separation if that's still required for social distancing when we're complete. You can go to the next slide now. This is the only, I should say, active railroad crossing on the project. This is in Wayne, in the Mountain View area, just behind Stall Plaza. There's an existing rail line that is freight only. It only has a very few trains traverse it each week. Those trains travel slowly. They're only a few cars long. We worked with Norfolk Southern. That's the original operator or owner of the railroad, and the New Jersey Department of Transportation to get an approval for a railroad crossing at this location for the trail. As you can see, the view on the right shows a standard railroad crossing sign, do not stop on tracks. There'll be advance warning marking signs and pavement markings prior to coming up to that crossing. But that's also been approved. This is the elevated path, or the elevated part of the trail. In Wayne Township, there's a section as shown in the previous slide where the rail line that we're following in Pequannock is still active, so we could not be within that same right-of-way. It's not owned by the NYS&W Railroad in that area. So we worked with Wayne Township to obtain an easement across a parcel that they own, and then also some other property owners, Hoffman Grove and North Jersey District Water Supply, to construct a raised trail in that area. And we went with a raised trail because it's the least impact to the environment. It also keeps our trail up above the floodplain. It doesn't prevent any water from flowing underneath. And then it also minimizes the impact to any tree removals. So the trail will also be 10 feet wide. There'll be 48-inch high railings on either side of the trail. And the elevation of the pathway is from where it meets existing grade to up about 5.5 feet, I believe, is the highest that it runs. And this will be supported on concrete piles, and that also minimizes the impact to the ground. Can you go to the next slide, please? This is the only new bridge structure, large bridge structure on the project. It's a 34-foot long steel truss bridge that's going to be constructed over to the Pequannock crossing. The raised part of the pathway in the previous image actually meets either end of the structure. Meadow Road is just to the north, and it'll be a at-grade crossing at Meadow Road. And then south of that crossing, the bridge will be constructed. You can go to the next slide, please. So this is the Pompton River Railroad Bridge. This is one of the focal points of the project. This is an existing structure, railroad bridge structure. It's approximately 280 feet long. It's 3 steel spans. The existing bridge is not in the best of shape as far as paint. You can see by the rust colored of the structure. It had been painted with a black lead paint. And then also the concrete underneath, you can see the spalling on the piers. That same spalling occurs on some of the bridge abutments too. If you go to the next image on this one. The bridge itself was actually constructed in 1915. It's the longest bridge on the project, and it has not had any maintenance occur on it in the last 40 to 50 years. So what we're going to do with this structure is we're actually going to remove the remaining lead paint. We'll repaint the structure with the new types of epoxy that aren't hazardous. We'll also remove all the wooden railroad ties that are across the bridge structure itself. There's some steel repairs that need to occur, and then also concrete repairs, so that spalling will be addressed on that concrete. Due to the depth of the girders, the steel girders on either side, we're actually going to elevate the trail across the bridge. So if you could go, actually, Mike, the next slide is fine. This is a rendering of what it will look like. The trail will actually raise up. I believe this is the image or the view from Hall Road, the southern end of the structure. So the pathway will raise up as it crosses the structure. So as you get to the mid-span, you'll be able to see up and down the river unobstructed. The trail, again, will be 10 foot wide. It'll be paved or concrete across the structure. It'll have railings across it because we won't quite be to the outside girders. And then that'll allow visibility up and down the river.
Excellent.
If you can take it over, Mike.
Sure. And Chris, I think we're going to have to wrap it up there. We're just about to 8:30, and I realized there was one logistic I did not cover. We've said if you have specific questions that you should put them in email, fax, or letter. And the recording of this and the slides will be posted on the Morris County website, the same site that you see here, that you use to connect to the link to register for this event. So if you were able to find that, you'll be able to find the spot where materials will be posted. I think I'm right on that, Chris. Is that correct?
That is correct. This will be posted on our website. Okay.
So with that, I think it's 8:30. We want to be respectful of everyone's time. I want to thank everyone for the continued interest. We still have a whole lot of people signed on. Appreciate that. And if you want to see this again, the recording of this and the slides will be posted on that Morris County website. So with that, Chris, anything else we should cover?
No, I just want to thank everybody for attending, and please, if there are questions that we did not answer tonight, email, call, or fax them to me, and we will get them answered.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. And we're going to sign off.
Thank you very much.
Good night.